Thousands of years ago, ancient wise men found something very important. Real peace isn't something we get by trying hard. It is something we find by letting go of what blocks it. Tonight, we will journey through Buddhist stories that gently remind us of this truth. Before we start, feel free to share what time it is and where you are listening from. The stories you will hear tonight are not hard lessons or difficult ideas to learn. They are quiet doorways into the deep rest your soul has been looking for. Each story carries the wisdom of teachers who learned that peace doesn't come from solving every problem. It doesn't come from controlling everything. It comes from finding the stillness that is already here. It is waiting beneath the surface of our searching. Let your shoulders drop now. Feel your body getting heavier with each breath. Trust that the wisdom in these stories will keep working long after you have fallen asleep. Relax. Take a slow, deep breath. And let's begin our journey together. Master Joshin ran a small temple high in the mountains, where the air was fresh and clean. He was known throughout the area for his wisdom and gentle ways. The temple itself was simple, with shiny wooden floors that glowed in the morning light. Paper windows looked out at groups of bamboo that whispered in the mountain breeze. Every morning at sunrise, the monks gathered in the main hall for their morning meal. It was a quiet time when the only sounds were the soft rustle of robes and the gentle sound of wooden bowls. They sat on worn cushions around low wooden tables, moving slowly and carefully. The hall was simple and beautiful. Sunlight came through the windows in golden beams, lighting up specks of dust dancing in the still air. The smell of incense hung in the air from morning prayers, mixing with the smell of fresh rice and green tea. But there was something unusual that every visitor noticed right away. Next to Master Joshin's regular place at the head of the room, there was always an extra cushion. It sat there day after day, placed exactly as if someone important were expected to arrive at any moment. This wasn't just any cushion either. It looked exactly like the master's own, covered in the same dark blue cloth, placed with the same care. A ceramic bowl was put in front of it each morning, filled with the same simple rice the monks ate. Polished wooden chopsticks were laid beside the bowl. Even a small clay cup for tea was placed there, with steam rising from it in the cool mountain air. Yet morning after morning, meal after meal, season after season, the cushion stayed empty. No one sat there. The rice grew cold and was quietly taken away. The tea was poured fresh each day, only to grow cold again. The chopsticks were never touched. The younger monks whispered about it in the garden as they swept leaves. Some thought it might be saved for a famous teacher who was expected to visit someday. Others believed it was connected to some old ceremony they hadn't learned about yet. A few wondered if Master Joshin was getting old and forgetting to remove an extra place setting. But none dared to ask him directly. Master Joshin was known for his patience with questions. He never made students feel silly for not understanding something. Yet something about the empty cushion felt holy, surrounded by an invisible line that shouldn't be crossed. The silence around it was deeper than the usual quiet of meditation. It was more serious than the quiet that fell during evening prayers. One crisp autumn morning, when the maple trees outside had turned bright red and gold, a young monk named Kotaro arrived. He was smart and eager, and his eyes were full of curiosity about everything he saw. He had come from a large monastery in the valley below, where hundreds of students practiced together. There, every tradition was explained in careful detail by older monks. Kotaro noticed the empty cushion immediately during his very first meal. His eyes kept looking at it throughout that first breakfast. The untouched bowl bothered him. The unused chopsticks seemed to ask for an explanation. By his third day, the mystery had begun to take over his thoughts. He found himself staring at the empty place during meals, trying to understand what it meant. He watched Master Joshin for any sign that he noticed the unused setting. But the old teacher ate his simple meals calmly, as if nothing unusual were there. After a full week of growing curiosity, Kotaro could no longer stay quiet. The question felt like a heavy stone in his chest that grew heavier each day. One morning, after breakfast had ended and the other monks had gone to do their chores, he approached Master Joshin carefully. The old master was sitting quietly outside the hall on a wooden bench, watching clouds drift past the mountain peaks. His weathered hands rested peacefully in his lap, and his eyes held the deep calm that comes from years of meditation. Kotaro bowed deeply, his forehead nearly touching the ground. "Master," he said with great respect, "please forgive me for asking, but I must know. Why is there always an empty cushion at our table? Why do we put food there each day when no one sits there? The mystery is keeping me awake at night." The old master looked at him with kind eyes that seemed to hold deep wisdom. He was quiet for a long moment, and Kotaro could hear the wind moving through the pine trees around the temple. Finally, Master Joshin pointed to the space beside him on the bench. "Sit with me," he said gently. They sat together in comfortable silence. The morning sun warmed their faces, and somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rang softly. Kotaro could feel his impatience slowly melting away in the peaceful air. Finally, Master Joshin spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "The cushion is for the part of me I haven't let go of yet." Kotaro's forehead wrinkled with confusion. "I don't understand, Master. What part?" The old monk turned to look directly at him. "Every morning when I wake up, I think I'm finished with my ego. I think I have let go of wanting to be someone special. I believe I have let go of pride and the need to be seen as wise or holy or important." He paused, watching a bird land on a nearby branch. "But each day, as I go through my routine, I discover small pieces of self that I am still carrying. Some mornings, I catch myself feeling proud of my years of practice. Other days, I notice myself enjoying it when visitors call me Master with great respect. Sometimes I find satisfaction in being known as the wisest teacher in these mountains." Kotaro listened closely, beginning to see the deep honesty in this. "Even the thought that I am humble," Master Joshin continued, "is a form of pride. Even believing I have achieved something through my spiritual practice is a way of holding on to being someone special. The cushion reminds me that there is always more ego to release, more attachment to dissolve, and more ideas about myself to let go of." The young monk sat in stunned silence. He had never heard a teacher speak so openly about still having an ego or still struggling with pride. In his previous monastery, the masters seemed to act as if they had finished their spiritual journey. Master Joshin placed a gentle hand on Kotaro's shoulder. "When I see that empty cushion each morning, I remember that I am still learning. It keeps me honest about the small ways I hold on to being Master Joshin instead of simply being what I am beneath all names and titles." "But Master," Kotaro said unsurely, "surely after so many years of practice, you must have gained great wisdom." The old monk chuckled softly. "The greatest wisdom I have gained is knowing how much wisdom I still lack. The empty cushion is my daily reminder that the path of letting go never truly ends. There is always something more to release." From that moment forward, Kotaro understood. The cushion wasn't strange or mysterious at all. It was deeply honest. It was a daily sign that spiritual practice isn't about reaching some final state of perfection. It is about continually releasing the countless ways we try to be someone important. As the seasons changed and Kotaro settled into life at the mountain temple, he began to see his own invisible cushions. He noticed how he wanted the other monks to think he was smart during discussions. He noticed his pleasure when Master Joshin praised his posture during meditation. He caught himself comparing his progress to newer students and feeling better than them. Each discovery was humbling, but also freeing. Instead of pretending these feelings didn't exist, he could admit them honestly, the way Master Joshin admitted his own attachments. One winter evening, as snow fell softly outside the windows, Kotaro was helping to serve the evening meal when he had a sudden realization. He saw that every person in the room, including himself, had their own invisible empty cushions. Everyone was carrying parts of themselves they hadn't yet released. Everyone was still holding on to ideas about who they were or who they should become. The understanding brought him a deep sense of kindness, both for himself and for all the other struggling human beings trying to find peace. We were all in the same situation, all learning to let go. We were all discovering new layers of attachment just when we thought we were free. Years passed, and Kotaro's practice grew deeper. He learned to catch the small movements of ego more quickly and to release them more easily, but he never reached a point where they stopped coming up entirely. The empty cushion teaching had prepared him for this reality. When Kotaro eventually became a teacher himself, he also kept an empty cushion at his table. New students would ask him about it with the same burning curiosity he had once felt. He would share the teaching that had changed his understanding of spiritual practice. We all carry invisible burdens, he would tell them. Ideas about ourselves that feel too important to release. Stories we tell ourselves about who we are or what we've accomplished. The empty cushion reminds us that freedom comes not from perfecting these stories, but from gradually letting them go. Perhaps we all need an empty cushion in our lives. Not a physical one necessarily, but a reminder that we are still carrying things we don't need. The self that insists on being right in arguments. The self that needs others to recognize our achievements. The self that holds onto grudges like precious treasures. The self that won't forgive old hurts. These aren't evil or wrong, but they can become heavy to carry. They can prevent the natural peace that comes when we stop trying to maintain so many ideas about ourselves. Tonight, as you rest, you might gently notice what invisible cushions you carry. What parts of your identity feel too important to question? What stories about yourself seem too precious to release? There's no need to force anything or judge yourself harshly. Simply notice with the same gentle honesty that Master Joshin brought to his own attachments. The beautiful truth that the mountain master discovered is this: peace doesn't come from becoming someone perfect or wise. It comes from gradually releasing the exhausting need to be anyone special at all. When we stop defending and maintaining so many ideas about ourselves, a natural freedom comes out that needs no protection. In a rich trading town at the foot of the mountains, where groups of travelers stopped to rest, there lived a man named Daizo. He had spent his entire adult life gathering wealth and things. His large house sat at the center of town, built from the finest wood and decorated with beautiful paintings. Daizo owned 3 successful shops that sold silk, spices, and precious metals. His warehouses were filled floor to ceiling with goods from all over the world. There were detailed carpets, delicate china, rare books, and jewelry that sparkled with gems. Every morning, Daizo would wake before dawn and walk through his storerooms. He would run his fingers over his things, counting their worth in his head. The feel of fine silk beneath his hands gave him deep satisfaction. The sight of gold coins stacked in wooden chests filled him with pride. He hired many workers, and when they bowed respectfully and called him Master Daizo, he felt the warm glow of being important. Yet despite all his success, Daizo found himself more and more restless as the years passed. His sleep had become bad, filled with worries about protecting his wealth from thieves. He worried about other businesses that might steal his customers. He made complicated plans for getting even more things. He would lie awake for hours each night, his mind racing with plans and worries. The weight of managing so many things had begun to tire him out in ways he hadn't expected. Each beautiful object required care and attention. Every business deal demanded constant watching. The more he owned, the more energy he needed to spend protecting and organizing it all. One spring morning, while walking through the town market, Daizo heard 2 travelers talking about a famous Zen master named Tetsugan. This master lived in a simple hut by the river at the edge of town. According to their conversation, this master had found perfect happiness despite owning almost nothing. How can someone with no things be truly happy? One traveler asked the other. They say he sleeps like a child every night, came the reply, and wakes each morning with a smile. This conversation planted a seed of curiosity in Daizo's mind. How could someone who owned nothing feel happier than he did with all his wealth? The question began to follow him through his days, popping up during quiet moments. After several weeks of wondering about this puzzle, Daizo decided he must meet this master. He wanted to discover the secret of happiness without possessions, but he couldn't imagine approaching such a wise teacher empty-handed. Surely a man of great spirit would appreciate fine gifts as signs of respect. Daizo spent an entire day choosing the most beautiful treasures from his collection. He chose a set of silk scarves so fine they seemed to float like clouds. He picked golden ornaments that caught the light. He selected his rarest incense brought from far-off mountains. Finally, he packed his most prized possession, a tea set made from clay so pure and beautiful. All of these treasures were carefully wrapped and loaded into heavy leather sacks. When everything was ready, Daizo loaded the sacks onto his strongest horse. But as they began the journey to the river, he noticed that the horse struggled under the huge weight. They had to stop often to rest. What should have been a short walk became a hard trip. When they finally arrived at Master Tetsugun's home, Daizo was surprised by what he found. The hut was tiny, barely large enough for one person to sleep in. It was built from simple bamboo and had a roof made of dried grass. There was no decoration of any kind, no sign of wealth or status. Master Tetsugun himself sat peacefully beside the flowing water, wearing a brown robe that had been fixed many times. His face had many lines from age, but his eyes held a clearness and peace that Daizo had never seen before. When he saw Daizo coming with his heavily loaded horse, the master smiled warmly. "Welcome, friend," Tetsugun said, standing up slowly. "You have traveled far today." "Master," Daizo said, bowing as respectfully as he knew how, "I have brought you gifts to show my deep appreciation for your wisdom, though I know these humble gifts are not enough for your greatness." He began the hard work of taking the heavy sacks off his struggling horse. Each treasure was unwrapped and displayed carefully on a clean cloth spread beside the river. The silk scarves moved in the gentle breeze. The golden ornaments caught the afternoon sunlight and seemed to glow. The rare incense filled the air with exotic smells. Master Tetsugun watched this display quietly, simply looking with gentle attention. When the last treasure had been arranged for viewing, he spoke. "These are indeed beautiful objects," he said with true appreciation. "Thank you for your kindness. But tell me, how did you feel during the journey here?" Daizo paused, surprised by the question. He had expected the master to comment on the value or beauty of the gifts, not ask about his trip. "It was quite difficult, actually," he admitted. "The sacks were very heavy. My horse could barely carry them all. We had to stop and rest many times along the way. I was worried the whole time that something might fall off and break." Master Tetsugan nodded thoughtfully. "And how do you feel right now? Having set everything down?" This question struck Daizo with unexpected force. He suddenly noticed his body in a way he hadn't moments before. His shoulders, which had been tight with worry during the entire journey, felt very light. His back, which had hurt from bending over the heavy sacks, was now straight and comfortable. The worry that had gripped him during the trip had completely disappeared. "I feel relieved," he said with genuine surprise in his voice. "Much lighter than I have in a long time." Master Tetsugun smiled with deep understanding. "You have just learned the most important teaching I could offer you. Things are only beautiful when you can set them down." "But Master," Daizo said, pointing toward the displayed treasures, "don't you want these gifts? They are worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. Surely they could be useful to you or to others." "They are indeed valuable and beautiful," the master replied. "But watch carefully." He reached down and picked up one of the golden ornaments, holding it up so that the sunlight made it sparkle. "See how lovely this is." Daizo nodded, admiring the way the metal caught the light. Then Master Tetsugan gently placed the ornament back on the cloth. And see how it remains just as lovely. I was able to enjoy its beauty completely without needing to own it. My appreciation required no ownership. This simple demonstration puzzled Daiso deeply. In his world, enjoying beautiful things was the same as owning them. How could you truly appreciate something if it wasn't yours? The master seemed to understand his confusion. He pointed toward the river flowing beside them. Do you own this water? No, of course not. No one can own a river. Yet can you not see how it sparkles in the sunlight? Can you not hear its gentle music as it flows over the stones? Can you not feel the cool, refreshing breeze it creates? Does your lack of ownership make any of these pleasures less real or less satisfying? For the first time, Daiso began to see what the master was suggesting. He could indeed enjoy the river's beauty without owning it. The sight and sound of flowing water brought him real pleasure, even though he had no control over it. I think I understand a little, he said slowly. But surely owning beautiful things must add something to life. Why else would people work so hard to get them? Master Tetsugan picked up a smooth stone from the riverbank and held it in his hand. Having things can certainly be pleasant, he agreed. But there is a big difference between having something and being had by it. When you must carry your possessions everywhere in your mind, constantly worrying about them, they begin to own you more than you own them. He tossed the stone gently into the water, where it disappeared with a small splash. True ownership means being able to let go when the time comes. When holding on to something becomes a heavy load, the wise person knows how to release it. The foolish person continues carrying unnecessary weight, growing more tired with each step. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in bright oranges and purples, Master Tetsugan invited Daiso to share his evening meal. The food was simple: rice, vegetables from a small garden, and tea made from leaves the master had gathered himself. As they ate together beside the flowing water, something remarkable happened to Daiso. He felt a quality of peace and happiness that he hadn't felt since childhood. The simple food tasted better than the fancy feasts he usually ate. The plain tea was more refreshing than the rare and expensive kinds in his collection. The sound of the river and the sight of the first stars filled him with a joy that no possession had ever given him. "Master," he said quietly as they finished their meal, "I feel happier sitting here with you tonight than I have felt in my mansion surrounded by all my treasures. How is this possible?" "Why do you think that might be?" Tetsugan asked gently. Daiso thought about the question carefully. "I suppose it's because right now I'm not worried about protecting anything. I'm not thinking about what I might lose or what I still need to get. I'm not planning or scheming. I'm simply here enjoying what's present." The master nodded. "You have discovered something profound. Peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from needing less. Happiness isn't found in gathering things, but in appreciating what's already here." They sat in comfortable silence as night fell around them. The river continued its song, and somewhere in the distance, an owl called softly. Daiso felt his mind growing quiet in a way it hadn't in years. When morning came, Daiso made a decision that surprised even himself. He asked Master Tetsugan not to keep the treasures he had brought, but to use them to help people in need. The silk scarves could warm those who had no proper clothing. The golden ornaments could be traded for food for hungry families. The tea set could be used to serve meals to travelers. "But these treasures represent years of work," Master Tetsugan observed. "Are you certain you want to give them away?" Daiso looked at the gifts, then at his horse, no longer burdened by their weight. He thought of the journey here, how heavy and difficult it had been, and how light and free he felt now. "I'm more certain of this than I have been of anything in a long time," he replied. "These treasures have taught me their greatest lesson by helping me understand what I don't need to carry." He loaded his empty sacks onto his horse and prepared to return home. The animal moved with energy and grace that had been impossible the day before. The journey that had been such a struggle became a pleasant ride through beautiful countryside that Daiso actually noticed for the first time in years. When he arrived back in town, something deep had changed in his relationship with his things. He still ran his business, but the desperate need to get more had disappeared. He began giving away items from his storerooms to people who needed them. His neighbors noticed the change immediately. Where once Daiso had seemed anxious, always rushing, now he appeared calm and present. He would take time to speak with his workers about their families. He would pause to appreciate the beauty of goods in his shops instead of seeing them only as profit. When people asked what had happened to change him so much, Daiso would tell them about his meeting with Master Tetsugen. "I discovered that true wealth isn't having everything you want," he would say. "It's wanting nothing more than what you have. The heaviest burdens we carry are often the ones we choose to pick up." Word of Daiso's change spread, and people began coming to him for advice about finding happiness. He would share the simple wisdom he had learned by the river. He taught that things are most beautiful when we can appreciate them without clinging to them. He taught that the greatest luxury is the freedom to travel light through life. Years passed, and Daiso became known not for his wealth but for his wisdom and kindness. His sleep became peaceful again. He was not troubled by worries about protecting possessions. He had learned that security comes not from having more, but from needing less. Both Master Joshin with his empty cushion and the merchant Daiso discovered the same truth. Freedom comes not from gathering more, but from releasing what we think we cannot live without. Whether it's ideas about ourselves or material things, the things we hold most tightly often become the chains that block our peace. This teaching from Zen Buddhism offers strong medicine for our busy modern lives. We are taught to believe that happiness comes from getting more fame, more safety, more control, more stuff, more success. But the mountain masters discovered the opposite truth. Contentment comes from learning to travel light. Tonight, as you get ready for deep rest, notice what you might be carrying that you don't actually need. What mental loads feel too important to set down? What worries are you holding on to as if they were precious treasures? What ideas about yourself seem too valuable to question? Just as Daiso felt great relief when he unloaded his heavy sacks, you too can feel the lightness that comes from letting go. You don't have to solve this through effort or force. Simply noticing what you're carrying is often enough to begin the natural process of letting go. The Zen masters understood that we are not our things, our successes, our jobs, or even our thoughts about ourselves. We are the open awareness that can hold all these things lightly. We can appreciate their beauty when they're present and remain peaceful when they're gone. In the gentle darkness of sleep, this awareness returns to its original freedom. All the things you think you must carry dissolve into the peaceful emptiness. Allow yourself to rest in this spacious peace. Now let your breathing become slow and natural. Feel your body releasing completely into the support beneath you. Trust that the most valuable parts of who you are cannot be lost. The empty cushion and the merchant's heavy sacks both point to the same truth. You are already free. You have always been free. The only thing stopping you from feeling this freedom is your belief that you must carry burdens that were never really yours. In a mountain monastery where the winter winds blew through ancient pine trees, there lived a young monk named Kenji. He burned with a strong desire for deep understanding. He had come to the temple 2 years earlier, leaving behind his comfortable life. He was driven by a strong belief that he was meant for something greater than ordinary life. From his very first day, Kenji practiced with a determination that impressed even the dedicated older monks. While others slept, he would rise at 3 o'clock in the morning to sit in meditation in the cold hall. The wooden floors were so cold they seemed to burn his bare feet, but he endured it as a test. During the day, when other monks took breaks, Kenji would find a quiet corner and continue his practice. He would sit still for hours, his back stiff with effort, fighting against every thought in his mind. When his legs went numb, he would stay seated until it hurt, believing this proved his progress. Kenji also pushed himself to fast, eating only one small meal each day. He had read stories of ancient masters who achieved wisdom through giving up everything, and he wanted to prove his seriousness. His body grew thin, and his face became gaunt, but he took pride in his dedication. The more intensely Kenji practiced, however, the more restless he became. Instead of finding the peace he wanted, his mind seemed to race even faster than before. His meditation sessions became battles against his own thoughts. They were exhausting struggles that left him feeling defeated rather than wise. His sleep became bad, filled with dreams of failing. Other monks began to notice Kenji's condition. His eyes, which had once sparkled, now appeared tired. His movements became jerky and tense. During discussions, he would ask frantic questions about how to meditate better or force himself into wisdom. After months of this struggle, Kenji's frustration reached a breaking point. One evening, after a hard meditation session, he approached Master Endo. The elderly leader was known for his gentle wisdom. Master Endo was sitting quietly in his room, sipping tea and watching the evening light fade. His presence radiated the very peace that Kenji had been trying to achieve. "Master," Kenji said, his voice tight, "I have been practicing harder than anyone for almost 2 years. I meditate longer, fast more often, and push myself. Yet, I feel further from peace than when I arrived. What am I doing wrong? How can I try harder? What more can I give up?" Master Endo looked at the young monk with eyes full of kindness. He could see the suffering that Kenji's intense efforts had created. His desperate seeking had become a wall blocking the peace he wanted to find. "Come with me," the master said simply, setting down his teacup. Master Endo led Kenji outside into the courtyard where the cold night air bit at their faces. Snow had begun falling earlier and everything was covered in white. In the center of the courtyard stood an old stone basin that collected water. The water had frozen solid, forming a thick block of ice. Master Endo stopped beside the basin and pointed to the ice. "Kenji," he said gently, "I want you to melt this ice with your bare hands." Kenji looked confused, but was eager to prove his dedication. He placed his hands on the frozen surface and began rubbing hard to make heat. The ice was painfully cold, and despite his efforts, it showed no signs of melting. He rubbed harder, pressing down with all his strength. His hands grew red and raw. "It's not working, Master," Kenji said through gritted teeth. "Try harder," Master Endo said calmly. Kenji doubled his efforts, rubbing until his hands felt like they were burning from the cold. Still, the ice remained completely solid. After several minutes, he stopped and looked at his teacher with defeat. "I can't do it, Master. My hands are too cold and the ice is too thick." Master Endo nodded. "Now stand back and simply watch." As they stood in the quiet courtyard, something subtle began to happen. The night was gradually giving way to dawn, and the first rays of sunlight began to appear. As the golden light touched the ice, tiny drops of water began to form. The sunlight didn't struggle or strain. It simply shone with its natural warmth. The ice didn't resist the melting process. It simply responded to the gentle heat by changing from solid to liquid. There was no force involved, no effort, no struggle. The change happened naturally. As they watched, the ice continued to melt slowly and steadily. Drop by drop, the solid block became flowing water. The sun didn't try to hurry the process. The ice didn't try to stay frozen. Everything happened according to natural laws without strain. "Do you see?" Master Endo asked softly. Kenji stared at the melting ice, and suddenly something clicked. "The sun doesn't try to melt the ice," he said slowly. "It simply shines, and the melting happens by itself." "Yes," the master nodded. "And what does this teach you about your practice?" The insight hit Kenji like a wave of cool water. "I've been trying to force wisdom instead of allowing it to happen naturally. All my effort and struggle have been preventing the very thing I want." Master Endo smiled. Awareness is like the sun, Kenji. It has its own natural light that doesn't require effort. When you try to force your mind to be peaceful, you create the very stress you're trying to eliminate. When you allow awareness to shine naturally, transformation happens by itself. They stood together in silence as the ice continued its slow, natural melting. Kenji felt something shifting inside him, a release of the tension that had driven him for so long. "But Master," Kenji asked, "how do I practice without trying? How do I meditate without effort?" "Return to your cushion," Master Endo said. "But this time, don't try to achieve anything. Don't fight your thoughts or force your mind to be quiet. Simply sit and allow awareness to be what it naturally is. Be like the sun, shining without trying to shine." That evening, Kenji approached his practice with a completely different attitude. Instead of sitting with rigid determination, he sat with gentle curiosity. Instead of fighting his thoughts, he allowed them to come and go like clouds. Instead of trying to create peace, he rested in the awareness that was already peaceful beneath the mental noise. The change was immediate and deep. For the first time in months, Kenji's meditation felt effortless. His breathing slowed on its own. His muscles relaxed. His mind began to settle like muddy water becoming clear when left alone. Over the following weeks, Kenji's entire approach changed. He continued to meditate, but his practice became like the sun's relationship to ice, natural, gentle, and effective. The peace he had been desperately seeking began to come, not through his efforts, but through his willingness to stop trying so hard. His sleep became deep again. His face looked bright. Other monks noticed that he moved with a new grace and calm confidence. 6 months later, Kenji experienced a moment of profound understanding. Without any effort, the boundaries between him and his meditation simply dissolved. The wisdom he had been chasing revealed itself to be the awareness that had been there all along. When Master Endo later asked him about this, Kenji smiled. "I finally understood that I was like a person searching everywhere for the glasses that were already on his face. The awareness I was seeking was the very awareness doing the seeking." Years later, when Kenji became a teacher, students would come to him with the same desperate intensity. He would tell them about the morning he learned to stop trying to melt ice with his hands. "Spiritual awakening," he would say, "is not something you achieve through effort. It's something you allow by getting out of your own way. Be like the sun. Don't try to be radiant. Simply let your natural radiance shine." This teaching reveals one of Zen Buddhism's most practical insights. Effort and allowing are not the same thing. Kenji's mistake was believing that growth required force. In fact, it requires the opposite, a gentle allowing that trusts awareness. Many of us approach life with Kenji's first attitude. We try to force ourselves to be happy, struggle to make relationships work, or exhaust ourselves trying to control things. But the masters discovered that the biggest changes happen not through force, but through allowing. This doesn't mean giving up on goals. The sun is active in its shining, but it doesn't struggle to produce light. Similarly, we can engage fully with life while learning to work with natural processes, rather than against them. Tonight, as you rest, you might notice areas where you've been trying too hard. Where in your life are you attempting to melt ice with your bare hands? This awareness can be the beginning of a more graceful approach. Allow your breathing to slow even more. Now, feel your body releasing completely into the support beneath you. Notice how sleep comes not through effort, but through a gentle allowing. Trust in your body's natural wisdom to restore itself. In a peaceful valley where a clear stream flowed between rice fields, there lived a farmer named Hiroshi. He had inherited his farm from his father. The land was good and well cared for. Hiroshi was known as a hard-working farmer, but he had one weakness: impatience. He wanted his crops to grow faster and his success to come more quickly than nature allowed. Each spring, Hiroshi would plant his seeds with great excitement, but within days, he would begin checking the soil constantly, looking for signs of sprouting. He would dig up corners to see if the seeds were growing. If growth seemed slow, he would add extra fertilizer and water more often. His neighbor, an elderly farmer named Master Tanaka, would watch this with amusement and concern. Tanaka's own gardens grew well year after year, yet Tanaka seemed to do far less work, spending much of his time simply sitting quietly among his plants. One particularly frustrating spring, Hiroshi's impatience grew worse. He had planted his rice seedlings 3 weeks earlier, and they seemed to be growing slowly. Every morning, he would rush to the field and measure the tiny green shoots. When the measurements showed only small growth, Hiroshi would become upset and try new things to make them grow faster. He adjusted the water, changed the fertilizer, and even tried talking to the plants. His worry began to affect his sleep and his family. At meals, he would talk about his concerns endlessly. One evening, Hiroshi noticed that Master Tanaka was sitting peacefully beside his own rice field. The elderly farmer seemed unconcerned about the speed of growth. Unable to hold his frustration, Hiroshi walked over. "Master Tanaka," he said with agitation, "don't you worry about how slowly the rice is growing. My plants seem to be taking much longer than usual." Master Tanaka looked up with calm patience. "How tall are your rice plants today?" he asked. "Only 6 inches, Hiroshi replied. "They should be at least 8 or 9. "And how tall were they yesterday?" 5¾ inches, so they grew 1/4 inch in a day. "Yes, but that's too slow," Hiroshi said. Master Tanaka smiled gently. "Come with me," he said, standing up slowly. He led Hiroshi to a section of his garden where tall bamboo grew. The bamboo stalks were huge, some reaching 20 feet or more. "Do you know how bamboo grows?" Master Tanaka asked. "Of course it grows very quickly," Hiroshi said. "Bamboo is famous for how fast it shoots up." "That's true," the old farmer agreed. "Bamboo can grow 3 feet in a single day once it starts. But do you know what happens before that fast growth?" Hiroshi shook his head. "For the first 4 or 5 years after bamboo is planted," Master Tanaka explained, "it barely grows at all above ground, maybe a few inches in a whole year. A farmer might think the plants were dying. He might dig them up or try to force faster growth." He pointed toward the tall bamboo. "But during those slow years, the bamboo is growing a huge root system underground. It's building the foundation that will support its fast growth later. When the roots are strong enough, the bamboo shoots up with incredible speed. But that speed is only possible because of the slow preparation that happened first." Master Tanaka led Hiroshi back toward the rice fields. "Your rice plants are like young bamboo. They are growing their roots. They are building strength to make grain later. When you constantly disturb them by checking and trying to force growth, you interrupt this important process." As they walked, Hiroshi began to understand. "You mean I should stop measuring the plants and just let them grow? I mean, you should learn to trust the wisdom that rice plants have. They know how to grow. Your job is to give them good conditions and then get out of their way." That night, Hiroshi found it difficult to sleep as he thought about this. He had always believed that farming required constant meddling. The idea of simply trusting nature felt strange. But the next morning, instead of rushing to the field with his ruler, Hiroshi tried a different way. He sat quietly at the edge of his field and simply watched. At first, this felt very hard. His mind raced with worries. But as he continued sitting quietly, something began to change. For the first time, Hiroshi noticed small details he had missed. He saw how the plants moved in the light. He saw that the plants that were bigger were not always healthier. Most importantly, he began to sense that the rice field was alive with its own intelligence. As days passed, and Hiroshi continued waiting rather than interfering, something remarkable happened. His stress disappeared, replaced by wonder. His sleep became peaceful again. 3 weeks later, Hiroshi noticed that his rice plants had begun growing faster, but more importantly, he realized that they had been growing perfectly all along. His measuring had created the illusion of slow progress. By harvest time, Hiroshi's crop was the best he had ever grown, but the bigger harvest was the understanding he had gained. He had learned that success required patience, observation, and trust. The following spring, when new farmers asked for advice, Hiroshi would share the story of the bamboo. "Plants know how to grow," he would tell them. "Our job is to provide good conditions and get out of the way." Master Tanaka, now very old, would smile when he saw Hiroshi sitting peacefully by his fields. "You have learned the most important lesson," he told him. "Working with nature is more powerful than trying to control it." Hiroshi's change shows us another lesson about effort versus allowing. Just as Kenji learned that spiritual growth cannot be forced, Hiroshi discovered that nature follows its own plan. This understanding applies to everything in life. Relationships cannot be forced to grow faster than they are ready. Healing takes its own time. Even learning new skills requires patience. The bamboo teaching reveals that big growth often needs long periods of invisible preparation. A student may study for months without feeling progress, then suddenly improve. A person dealing with sadness may feel stuck before feeling better. In our world, we want everything to happen fast. We measure progress constantly and get frustrated when change is slow, but the masters understood that deep changes happen slowly and often invisibly, like bamboo roots. Tonight, as you get ready for rest, think about where you might be trying to force growth. Where have you been measuring progress too much? This doesn't mean doing nothing. Hiroshi still watered his crops, but he learned the difference between helping and interfering. He discovered that trust produces better results than control. Rice that grows slowly in good soil is stronger than rice that is forced. Similarly, insights that come naturally in a peaceful mind are more stable. Both Kenji and Hiroshi learned that their role was to create the right conditions. In meditation, this means being still and paying attention. In farming, it means giving good soil and water. As you settle into sleep, you can practice this. Your job is not to force sleep, but to create the right conditions, a quiet room and a peaceful mind. Then you can trust your body to guide you into rest. Let your breathing become even slower. Feel your body relaxing. Notice how sleep, like bamboo growth, cannot be forced. It comes naturally when conditions are right and we stop interfering. The sun melts ice through gentle light, not struggle. Rice grows through patient unfolding, not pushing. Your own peace emerges through allowing, not control. Rest deeply in this understanding. The same natural intelligence that guides plants is available to guide you. In Zen Buddhism, the path is about removing the obstacles that hide what we already are. Like Kenji's awareness and Hiroshi's plants, your own peace is already present, growing in its own time. In a rich kingdom, there ruled a man named Emperor Akihiko, who had everything a person could want. His palace was beautiful and filled with treasures. His gardens were famous, looking like paradise on earth. Akihiko was respected by other rulers and loved by his people. His treasury was full of gold. His armies were strong. His farms grew plenty of food, so his people lived well. Yet despite all this, Emperor Akihiko felt an emptiness he could not understand. In quiet moments, a question would come to his mind. What is the real meaning of life? What truth lies beneath all these temporary pleasures? This question began to bother the emperor. He would walk through his gardens and feel like something was missing. He would sit in his room and wonder if there was a deeper purpose to life. Determined to find an answer, Emperor Akihiko called the wisest teachers to him. Philosophers, priests, and scholars came to explain the nature of reality. Each teacher spoke well and gave long explanations, but none of their words satisfied the deep longing in the emperor's heart. Their teachings felt like beautiful clothes that didn't fit. After months of disappointment, Emperor Akihiko had almost given up hope. Then, one afternoon, A humble figure appeared at the garden gate. It was an old monk dressed in simple, patched robes. He carried a small bag and wore worn-out sandals, but his eyes held a peace that caught the emperor's attention. "Your Majesty," the monk said, bowing simply, "I hear you seek to understand the true nature of life." Emperor Akihiko looked at him with hope and doubt. Could this ordinary monk offer anything different? "Yes," the emperor replied. "I have been searching for months, but no one has given me an answer." The old monk smiled gently. "I cannot give you the answer," he said, "but I can offer you something that will show it to you." The monk took out a plain wooden box about the size of 2 hands. It was simple pine, tied with a rope. "This container holds the truth you are seeking," the monk said, giving it to the emperor. "But you must promise to open it only when you are truly ready to receive what is inside." Emperor Akihiko took the box, surprised by how light it felt. "How will I know when I am ready?" "You will know," the monk said. "Do not rush. The truth inside will wait." The monk bowed and walked away. The emperor never saw him again. The emperor put the sealed box by his bed. For days he stared at it, wanting to untie the rope. The box seemed mysterious. What could be inside? Maybe a scroll with ancient wisdom, a sacred object, a rare substance. But the monk's words held him back. "Only when you are truly ready." What did it mean to be ready? Weeks passed, then months. The box stayed sealed. It became a constant part of the emperor's life. He would touch it gently and wonder about it. Sometimes he shook it, but it was silent. As time went on, Emperor Akihiko's life continued, but something had changed. The presence of the box made him more patient and thoughtful. Instead of rushing, he began to move more slowly and observe more carefully. Years passed. The emperor grew old and grey. He saw joy and sorrow, births and deaths. He saw his kingdom face challenges and success. Through it all, the sealed box remained on his stand. Emperor Akihiko would look at it during hard times and feel comfort. One quiet winter evening, when the emperor was in his 70s, he sat alone watching snow fall. The palace was peaceful. As he looked at the box in the soft light, he felt a deep sense of completion. For the first time, he felt no urgent need to know what was inside. He was no longer driven by desperate seeking. The question about the meaning of life hadn't been answered, but it no longer felt like a problem. "Now," he whispered, "I am ready." With old, gentle hands, Emperor Akihiko untied the rope. His heart beat steadily. He lifted the lid slowly and looked inside. The container was completely empty. At first, the emperor just stared. Had the monk tricked him? Was it a joke? But as he kept looking into the empty box, something amazing happened. Instead of being angry, Emperor Akihiko began to laugh. Not with bitterness, but with deep, pure joy. In that moment of seeing nothing, he understood everything. The truth he had been seeking was not in any object. It was not hidden in books or teachings. It had been present in every moment of his searching. The emptiness in the box was not the absence of truth. It was the presence of something too big to be captured. The awareness that could see the emptiness, the life force that had kept him questioning. This was the truth. "In seeking truth, I found nothing," he said aloud. "And in finding nothing, I discovered everything." The emperor understood why the monk made him wait. Earlier, he would have seen only emptiness and felt cheated. But the years of waiting had prepared him to see what the emptiness really meant. From that night on, Emperor Akihiko's life changed completely. He continued to rule, but without the need to find meaning elsewhere. He found satisfaction in simple moments: tasting tea, talking with friends, seeing birds fly. When visitors came seeking wisdom, he would sometimes show them the empty box. Most looked confused, but some would laugh with recognition. The emperor lived for many more years in peace. Those who knew him said his greatest achievement was the quality of his presence. When Emperor Akihiko died, the empty box was found by his bed, still open. His journal said, "The treasure I sought was the seeking itself. The peace I wanted was always here, waiting beneath my longing." This story reveals a big insight of Zen Buddhism. What we seek is not hidden far away, but present, right here. The emperor's waiting wasn't preparation for finding truth. It was the truth being recognized. Many of us look for happiness like the emperor looked at the box. We think the answer is somewhere else, in a special experience we haven't had yet. We think peace will come when we solve our problems or get what we want. But the empty box teaches us that peace is not something we can get. It is the awareness that sees everything. This awareness has been here all along. The emperor's laughter was the laughter of recognizing something obvious. He finally understood that his life itself was the truth he was looking for. Tonight, as you rest, consider what you are seeking that might already be here. What peace are you hoping to find that could be present right now? The empty container reminds us that the biggest truths can't be held, only recognized. Your awareness right now, reading these words, breathing. This awareness is what you seek. It is revealed not by finding something new, but by recognizing what has never been missing. In a mountain village, there lived a learned man named Takashi. He had spent his whole life studying Buddhist books. His house was full of books and notes. Takashi was respected as a very smart scholar. Monks and students came from far away to ask him questions. But despite all his knowledge, Takashi felt unsatisfied. He could explain hard ideas, but he felt something was missing. He became convinced there must be a secret book that would finally give him deep understanding. Takashi had heard stories of a mysterious text called the Book of Complete Understanding. It was said to contain the final secrets of wisdom. Legend said anyone who read it would instantly become wise. Many scholars had searched for it, but no one had found it. Takashi became obsessed with finding this book. He spent months searching records and asking old monks. Finally, he found a clue that the book might be in a hidden monastery on a high mountain peak. Takashi packed his bags and set off on a difficult 3-day journey. The path was dangerous and steep. His soft hands became sore from climbing. When he reached the monastery, he was tired but excited. The building was carved into the rock. Only 3 old monks lived there. The head monk, Master Ryogan, welcomed Takashi warmly. Takashi explained his search for the book. "Ah," the old monk said, "you seek the Book of Complete Understanding. Yes, we have it here. It has been here for a long time." Takashi's heart raced. He had found it. However, Master Ryogan said, "There are rules. You must spend 1 month here, living with us and doing our daily work." Takashi agreed. 1 month seemed okay if it meant finally getting the wisdom he wanted. Life at the monastery was different from his life as a scholar. Each day began before dawn with meditation in a cave. Then they did simple work: gardening, cleaning, and cooking. It was humble work, not like studying books. At first, Takashi was frustrated. He wanted to read the secret book. But as weeks passed, something changed. The simple rhythm of life began to calm his busy mind. The silent meditation quieted his constant thoughts. The physical work connected him to his body. Takashi began to feel moments of deep peace and clarity. During meditation, his mind felt open and spacious. One evening, watching the sunset, Takashi realized his desperate hunger for knowledge had gone away. He felt a simple appreciation for the moment. That night, Master Ryogan said, "Tomorrow, your month is up. Are you ready to see the book?" "Yes, Master," Takashi said, though he felt calm instead of excited. The next morning, Master Ryogan led him to a special room. In the center was a beautiful wooden box. "The Book of Complete Understanding has been here for 400 years, Master Ryogan said. He opened the box and took out a scroll wrapped in silk. "You may now read the ultimate teaching," he said. Takashi unwrapped the silk and unrolled the old scroll. The paper was yellow with age. But when he looked for the writing, he saw that the scroll was completely blank. There were no words, no secrets, just empty space. For a moment, Takashi was confused. Had the ink faded? Was it a mistake? But as he looked at the empty space, something amazing happened. Instead of being disappointed, Takashi began to laugh. Just like the emperor, he recognized the truth. The understanding he sought could not be written down. It was the awareness that saw the blank scroll. It was the life that had kept him seeking. All his years of study were valuable, but they were not the goal. The goal was the understanding present, right here, right now. It didn't need to be written down because it was already complete. The month you spent with us, Master Ryogan said, was the real book. The peace you found in meditation, the contentment in work, the clear mind. This was the teaching the blank scroll was waiting to show you. Takashi understood why he had to wait. Without the month of practice, he would have seen only emptiness, but the practice had prepared him to see what the emptiness meant. Master, Takashi said, I came seeking a teaching to complete my understanding, but I discovered my understanding was already complete. I wanted to add knowledge, but I needed to subtract the seeking. Master Ryogan nodded. You have read the book correctly. When Takashi returned home, he was changed. He continued teaching, but without the desperate hunger for a final answer. He understood that the deepest teachings are found in direct experience. Students noticed his new presence and authenticity. When they asked, he told them about the blank scroll. I traveled far to find the truth, he would say, and discovered it was right here all along. Both the emperor and Takashi found the same truth. What we seek is not hidden elsewhere, but present right here. We think peace is in the future, after we achieve something. But Zen says searching often stops us from seeing what we already have. The awareness that seeks is the awareness that finds. The life that longs for meaning is already meaningful. This doesn't mean we stop learning or working. Takashi kept studying, and the emperor kept ruling. But they found satisfaction in the present moment, not just in future goals. As you sleep tonight, think about what you are seeking that might already be here. The blank scroll reminds us that we don't always need to add more. Sometimes we need to recognize what we already are. Your awareness right now is not lacking anything. It is the destination itself, already complete, already at peace. Let your body release. Feel your breathing slow down. Trust that the rest you seek is something you can allow. The awareness that sleeps is the same awareness that is always whole. In Zen, recognizing this is the beginning of real living. When we stop looking elsewhere, we appreciate the simple fact of being alive. High in the mountains, there lived a young monk named Jishin. He had been struggling with meditation for months. Jishin tried very hard. He sat for hours with a straight back. He followed all the instructions, but he could not find peace. The harder he tried to be calm, the more busy his thoughts became. When he tried to focus on breathing, he worried about doing it wrong. When he tried to empty his mind, more thoughts came. Most frustrating of all, Jishin would have brief moments of peace, but as soon as he tried to hold on to them, they disappeared. The more he reached for calm, the faster it slipped away. This pattern of grasping and losing took over his life. He would try to recreate good conversations or feelings and exhaust himself. One day, Jishin asked Master Sojan for help. Master Sojan was a wise old teacher who lived in a small hut. Jishin found him drinking tea and watching clouds. Master, Jishin said, I need help. I practice hard, but I can't keep peace. Every time I feel calm, I try to hold it, but it goes away. How can I keep a peaceful mind? Master Sojan looked at the sky. Look at that cloud, he said, pointing to a beautiful white cloud. Do you see how gracefully it moves? Yes, Master. It is beautiful. Tell me, Master Sojan said, is that cloud trying to hold on to the sky? No, Master. Clouds don't hold on. They just float. And does the sky try to grab the cloud and keep it? No, the sky allows the cloud to move. Master Sojun nodded. Notice how perfectly they exist together. The cloud belongs to the sky, and the sky holds the cloud without effort. Neither struggles. Jishin began to see a lesson here. Your peaceful mind, Master Sojun explained, is like the sky. Your thoughts and feelings are like clouds. When you try to grab peaceful moments, you are like someone trying to catch a cloud with their hands. The master opened his empty hand. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. But master, Jishin asked, if I don't try, won't I lose the peace? Watch the cloud again, Master Sojun said. Is it lost because it moves? Is it less beautiful because it changes? Jishin realized the cloud's beauty came from its movement, and the sky remained the sky, whether it had clouds or not. The sky was always there, open and spacious. The peace you seek, the master said, is not a cloud that comes and goes. It is the sky itself. It is the open awareness that stays the same whether thoughts are peaceful or busy. Over the next few days, Jishin tried this new way. Instead of trying to create peace, he practiced being like the sky. He observed all his thoughts without being disturbed. Instead of holding on to calm, he appreciated the open space that held both calm and noise. The change was amazing. When peace came, Jishin enjoyed it without worry. When busy thoughts came, he watched them pass like clouds. He knew they didn't hurt his deep peace. One morning, Jishin had a realization. He saw that he had been seeking something he already had. The peaceful awareness he wanted was the awareness that had been seeking. I was like someone looking for their own eyes, he told the master. The peace I wanted was the peace I already was. From then on, Jishin changed. He stopped grasping. He moved with ease. His presence became calming to others because he stopped interfering with natural peace. Years later, Jishin taught students to look at the sky. Stop trying to catch the wind, he would say. You are the stillness through which all movement passes. Peace is not something you achieve. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else. This teaching is very practical. We often try to grab happiness, love, or success. We try to make things stay the same, but grasping too tight ruins the magic. A peaceful moment becomes stressful if we worry about losing it. Jishin shows us a different way. Instead of trying to be the cloud, we can rest as the sky. Instead of identifying with changing thoughts, we can recognize ourselves as the open awareness. This doesn't mean being passive. Clouds make the sky beautiful. Thoughts and feelings add richness to life. But when we know we are the sky, we can appreciate everything more fully. In a busy market town, there lived a man named Ryokan. He owned nothing but his clothes and a wooden bowl. Most people thought he was very poor. But Ryokan seemed happier than the rich merchants. Ryokan had not always been poor. Years ago, he was a successful rice trader with a big house and lots of money. But bad luck and bad deals cost him everything. He lost his money, his house, his wife, and his friends. But after losing everything, Ryokan found something unexpected: freedom. Without things to protect or worry about, he felt light. Each morning, Ryokan woke up wherever he found shelter. Instead of being sad, he felt grateful to be alive. He walked through town helping shopkeepers for food or coins. He swept, carried bags, and worked cheerfully. People liked him because he was never bitter. He never complained or wished for his old life. He moved with appreciation. One day, a wealthy merchant named Watanabe, who knew Ryokan from before, saw him sweeping. Watanabe felt sorry for him. "Ryokan," he said, "I am sorry to see you like this. It must be hard living this way after having so much." "How do you bear it?" Ryokan looked at him without shame. "Bear what?" he asked, puzzled. Watanabe pointed at Ryokan's old clothes. "Don't you miss your house and business? Don't you want your old life back?" Ryokan leaned on his broom. Tell me, Watanabe, do you remember how I was back then? How I felt? Watanabe thought back. Ryokan had been anxious, worried about deals, and often angry. He had complained about stress constantly. I suppose you were stressed, Watanabe admitted. Ryokan smiled. I was miserable. I had everything, but I was afraid of losing it. I worried about the future and regretted the past. I was rich in things, but poor in peace. He pointed to the sunny street. Now look, I have no things to worry about. When I'm hungry, I eat. When I'm tired, I rest. When the day is beautiful, I enjoy it. I have never been richer in things that matter. Watanabe was confused. But don't you feel unsafe? How can you be happy without knowing where your next meal comes from? Watch, Ryokan said, pointing to a sparrow eating crumbs. Does that bird look worried about tomorrow? Does it look anxious? No, Watanabe said. But that's a bird. Humans have needs. Do we? Ryokan asked. Or do we have fears? That sparrow needs food and safety like I do, but it doesn't waste energy worrying about needs it doesn't have right now. Over the next months, Watanabe watched Ryokan. He saw that Ryokan enjoyed simple meals more than rich people enjoyed feasts. He saw that Ryokan slept better than anxious merchants. He saw that Ryokan had real friends, not just business partners. One evening, Watanabe sat with Ryokan by the river, watching the sunset. Ryokan, he said, I still don't understand. How can you be content with so little? Ryokan asked, what do I lack right now? Well, a house, money, fine food. True, Ryokan said, but I also don't have bills, business problems, or pressure. Right now, I have a healthy body, a peaceful mind, and a beautiful sunset. Tell me, when was the last time you really watched a sunset? Watanabe realized he couldn't remember. He was always too busy. I think I understand, Watanabe said. Contentment doesn't depend on having things, but on appreciating what is here. Exactly, Ryokan said. I thought happiness would come when I had enough. But enough always changed. When I lost everything, I found that happiness was already here. It was in the simple fact of being alive. Watanabe's view on money changed. He started enjoying simple pleasures: tea, sunlight, finishing work. He stopped worrying so much about getting more. He learned to hold his possessions lightly. Years later, Watanabe would tell people about the beggar who was richer than any rich man. True wealth, he would say, is not having everything you want. It's wanting nothing more than what you have. Ryokan's story teaches us that peace needs nothing. Jishin learned not to grasp mental states. Ryokan learned not to need specific conditions. Both found that satisfaction comes from recognizing the completeness of the present moment. We think we will be happy when we have money, love, or health. But both the monk and the beggar found peace right now. This doesn't mean we stop working. Ryokan still worked for food, but his happiness didn't depend on it. The sparrow works to find food, but doesn't worry. Humans can plan, but we suffer when we compare our life to what we wish it was. We spend energy wishing things were different and miss the beauty of what is here. As you rest tonight, notice what you are waiting for to be content. Can you practice Ryokan's lesson? Find completeness in this moment of rest. Peace doesn't need to be earned. It is the natural state of awareness when it stops reaching for something else. Like the sky holding clouds or the sparrow living in the moment, your peace is always available. Let your breathing slow down. Feel your body relax. Rest in the awareness that needs nothing added to be whole. Being aware, being alive, being here now. In a valley of rice fields, there lived a farmer named Ichiro. He had worked his land for 40 years. Ichiro was known for his calmness no matter the weather. While other farmers got upset about droughts or floods, Ichiro stayed calm. He hadn't always been this way. When he was young, He got angry at bad weather, just like everyone else. A frost would make him complain for days. A drought would keep him awake with worry. The change happened 20 years ago during a terrible year. Every disaster hit the valley. A harsh winter, then spring floods, then a summer drought, then autumn storms with hail. By harvest time, Ichiro had lost almost everything. His crop was tiny, barely enough to survive. The whole valley was anxious. But standing in his ruined field, Ichiro felt something strange: acceptance. He saw that his anger had never changed the weather. It only made him suffer more. "The rain falls where it falls," he said. "The sun shines when it shines. I cannot control the weather. I can only work with it." This changed everything. Instead of fighting nature, he observed it and adapted. He stopped getting emotionally crushed by bad crops. He saw failures as lessons. His neighbors noticed. When drought came, Ichiro didn't curse the sky. He saved water and planted crops that liked dry weather. When floods came, he made drains. Surprisingly, his farm did better because he wasn't wasting energy fighting reality. 3 years after the bad year, another drought hit. Wells ran dry and crops died. Other farmers gathered to complain. Ichiro quietly worked on his plan. He had stored water and planted tough vegetables. When neighbors asked how he could be so calm, he pointed to the sky. "Does my worry make it rain?" he asked. "No," said a neighbor named Tanaka. "I am concerned," Ichiro said. "That is why I take practical action, but I don't waste energy wishing the weather was different. When I accept it as a dry year, I focus on how to farm in a dry year." Another farmer asked, "But isn't acceptance just giving up?" Ichiro showed them his fields. He showed them how he adapted to rain, drought, and cold. "Acceptance isn't doing nothing," he said. "It means putting all my energy into responding wisely to what is happening. It is better than dividing my energy between action and complaining." He pointed to some trees. "I planted these because I accepted the wind was strong here. If I just complained about the wind, I would never have planted trees." Other farmers began to copy him. They learned to observe and plan without panic. They got better results and felt less stressed. A Buddhist monk visited and asked Ichiro his secret. "I just stopped arguing with reality," Ichiro said. "What do you mean?" the monk asked. "For years, I wished drought was rain and cold was warm. I was like a man shouting at a mountain to move. It began to rain." Ichiro smiled. "Now, when drought comes, I think, this is a dry year. How do I farm? When storms come, I think, how do I protect my crops?" The monk nodded. "You accept what is. You stop fighting the past." "Yes," Ichiro said. "There are 2 kinds of pain. The pain of hard times and the pain of resisting them. I cannot avoid the first, but I can avoid the second." Years later, Ichiro taught young people, "Life brings weather you didn't order. The question is not how to control the weather, but how to dance with it." Ichiro's story teaches the difference between pain and suffering. Pain comes from hard things we can't control. Suffering comes from wishing things were different. Acceptance is active wisdom, not giving up. When Ichiro accepted the weather, he could think clearly and act effectively. This applies to all of life. We can't control other people, health changes, or world events, but we can choose how we relate to them. Fighting reality adds suffering. Accepting reality helps us find solutions. This doesn't mean we don't try to improve things. Ichiro still farmed hard, but he distinguished between useful action and useless resistance. Tonight, notice what you are fighting against. What circumstances do you wish were different? See if you can practice Ichiro's wisdom, accept what is, and engage fully with life. At a monastery with snowy winters lived a student named Sato. Sato struggled with deep sadness that came without warning. It felt like a dark fog that made everything hard. Sato tried to fight it. He forced himself to be busy. He tried to think positive thoughts. He isolated himself. Nothing worked. Fighting often made it worse. He felt embarrassed because monks were supposed to be peaceful. He feared he was failing. Master Daitsu, a wise teacher, knew about the human mind. One winter morning, Sato was walking in the snow feeling very sad. He saw Master Daitsu sitting on a bench enjoying the cold. "Good morning, Sato," the master said warmly. "Sit with me." They watched the snow in silence. "Master," Sato said, "I have been here 3 years, but I still get sad for no reason. I fear I am not good at this path." "Something is wrong with me." The master asked, "What do you think of this winter weather?" "I don't understand," Sato said. "Do you think snow is a mistake?" "No, winter is natural," Sato said. "And yet," the master said, "winter is cold and dark. It stops plants from growing. A farmer might think winter is a bad thing. But wise farmers know winter is necessary," the master continued. "It lets trees rest. The snow provides water for spring. It is part of the cycle." He looked at Sato. "What if your sadness is like winter in your inner life?" Sato was surprised. He always thought his sadness was a problem to fix. He never thought it might be natural or useful. "Think about winter," the master said. "The world gets quiet. Growth slows. There is rest and reflection. Maybe your sadness serves a similar purpose." Over the next days, Sato tried to see his sadness differently. Instead of fighting it, he allowed it to be there. He noticed that sadness often came when he had been working too hard. It forced him to slow down and rest. He also noticed that during these quiet times, he learned things about himself. The sadness created space for understanding. When he stopped fighting it, the sadness passed more naturally. Just as winter gives way to spring, his dark moods would lift, leaving him renewed. Months later, as spring arrived, Sato felt lighter. He told Master Daitsu, "I understand now. When I stopped forcing sadness away and rested in it like winter, it changed. The darkness felt less like an enemy and more like a teacher." "And what did it teach you?" the master asked. "I don't have to be afraid of difficult emotions," Sato said. "When I welcome sadness, it passes. When I fight it, it stays longer." I also learned that quiet times prepare for new growth, just like winter prepares for spring. "Yes," the master agreed. "A full life has all seasons. Your inner life needs winter and summer to be healthy." Sato became a strong student because of his relationship with emotions. He welcomed sadness, fear, and anger just as he welcomed joy. He learned to be a skilled gardener of his own mind. When he became a teacher, he told students, "Don't try to skip winter. When you rest in darkness, you find that your true nature remains unchanged through all seasons." Sato's story teaches us about accepting our inner feelings. Ichiro accepted outer weather. Sato accepted inner weather. We are often taught that sadness or fear are problems to fix, but difficult emotions have a purpose. Sadness helps us process loss. Fear alerts us. Sato learned that fighting emotions makes them stronger. Forcing ourselves to be happy creates more stress. Acceptance doesn't mean ignoring mental health. It means trusting that emotional cycles are natural. Tonight, practice acceptance. Release the struggle against what happened today. Welcome your feelings, like winter welcomes seeds. Acceptance is not giving up, but wise engagement. When we stop fighting, we have energy for creativity and healing. Let your breathing slow down. Feel your body relax. Rest in the understanding that this moment, with whatever feelings it has, is okay. You don't need to change your experience to be worthy of rest. In Zen, this is called just this. It is always enough. Sleep peacefully, knowing your fundamental nature is like the awareness that watches the seasons. It is not changed by them. It needs no improvement. The acceptance that brings peace is like love. It welcomes everything. In a valley with a small temple, a storm had just passed. Brother Shinran was sweeping when he heard thunderous hooves. A horse ran past the temple at full speed. It was running fast, eyes wide, breathing hard. It looked like it was racing to an urgent destination. Shinran watched it disappear around the bend. Master Aizen came out. "What are you looking at?" "Master, a horse just ran past so fast. It seemed determined to get somewhere." "Where do you think it was going?" the master asked. "I don't know, but it seemed very important." The master smiled. "The horse doesn't know where it's going." Shinran was confused. "But it was running with such purpose." "It was running," the master said, "but not because it chose a destination. Earlier there was thunder. That scared one horse. When other horses saw it running, they ran too. Now this horse runs because it learned that when uncertain, you run. It runs because of habit." He paused. "But the thunder is gone. There is no danger. The horse just doesn't know how to stop." The master asked, "Shinran, do you know where you need to go right now?" "No, master. I am here working." "Yet, how often does your mind run like that horse? How often do your thoughts race without a destination, just because thinking is a habit?" Shinran was struck by this. He realized his mind was often racing. Even while sweeping, he was planning, worrying, and jumping from thought to thought. "I understand," Shinran said. "My mind runs without purpose, like the horse. Even when I do simple tasks, my thoughts keep racing." "Yes," the master said. "Most people's minds run constantly. They assume that being busy means doing something important." Shinran began to watch his thoughts. He saw them racing through plans and memories. During meditation, thoughts chased each other like wild horses. Some ran toward goals, some ran away from feelings, some just ran out of habit. One morning, Shinran felt a moment of stillness. The mental running stopped. He rested in an awareness that needed no destination. He understood the lesson. His thoughts raced because of habit, not necessity. Like the horse running after the thunder was gone, his mind kept going. When thoughts came back, Shinran didn't fight them. He watched them with curiosity. Slowly, the thoughts lost their frantic speed. Like a horse realizing there is no predator, his mind slowed down. "Master," Shinran said later, "I understand. My thoughts were racing because they forgot how to be still." "Yes," the master said. "And what is stillness?" "Stillness is always here," Shinran said. "It is the space where the running happens. When I stop trying to control thoughts, they settle." "How has this changed your life?" "I notice when my thinking is unnecessary. I ask myself, does this thought have a place to go, or is it just running?" Most of the time, it's just running. Shinran learned to let his mind rest. He could focus when needed and be still when not. Years later, Shinran told students about the horse. The mind is like that horse. It runs out of habit. Once you understand this, you can appreciate the stillness beneath the movement. This story teaches us about our busy minds. We think constant thinking is important, but much of it is just habit, like a horse running from old thunder. We replay old conversations and worry about the future. We assume being busy is productive, but when we look closely, it's just motion. The thunder is the stress of daily life. Once our minds start racing, they keep going, even when we are safe. Understanding this is freeing. We can tell the difference between useful thinking and habit. Tonight, observe your mind. Are your thoughts racing to a destination or just running? Can you find the stillness that Shinran found? The spacious awareness that is peaceful whether thoughts move fast or slow. As our journey ends tonight, you have traveled far in understanding. You have discovered that peace is found by letting go. Each story returned you to wisdom you already knew. Contentment has been here all along. The running horse taught you that mental busyness is often just habit. The empty box showed you that the seeker is the found. The farmer showed you how to work with life, not against it. The student with winter showed you that difficult emotions have a purpose. The merchant learned that freedom comes from traveling light. The monk with the cushion showed that we must let go of being special. These teachings work naturally, like seeds. You don't need to force them. They will bloom in their own time. You don't need to remember every detail to sleep well. Deep rest comes from trusting that you can meet life with natural wisdom. This trust is simple. It's like removing barriers to sunlight. Let your body sink into relaxation. Release into the support beneath you. Notice your breathing slowing down. This is the effortless intelligence the masters trusted. Sleep is consciousness returning to its natural state. In this rest, you join seekers who found that peace needs nothing added. As you drift to sleep, you are discovering what consciousness is like when it stops trying. This awareness watched all the stories tonight. It remains unchanged whether you're awake or asleep. Rest in this awareness. It asks nothing of you. It welcomes you home. These teachings will keep working. Trust the timing, just as you trust your body to sleep. Your task is simply to rest. The awareness that heard these stories is already whole and at peace. Sleep well, and thank you for joining us here.